All right. Hey, welcome back for Film Shake. I'm Jordan.
This is Nick.
And this is episode 14, where we're talking about another 90s
Godzilla!
movie, Godzilla.
I don't know where that came from. I'm sorry.
From the bottom of your soul.
That's right.
This is an episode on 1998's Godzilla. Yes, we're a 90s movie podcast here to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, or should I say the rad, the gnarly, and the bogus.
Yeah, this is not tubular.
This movie was not tubular.
No, Godzilla, not tubular.
Not tubular. Doesn't deserve the title tubular at all. But yeah, it's a very widely panned, hated movie. But we thought we would look back on it and check in and say, hey, maybe it was actually okay. Apparently, in a lot of foreign markets, this did pretty well.
Yeah.
Back in the late 90s.
Not in Japan.
Had no context for any other Godzilla movie. So they were just sitting there waiting for the sequel to come out, which never did, which is hilarious to me, to think that somebody enjoyed this somewhere and wanted the sequel that bad to just sit around and wait. But before we get into that, Nick, what happened last time on our podcast? I remember something terrible happened.
I don't. Actually, okay, so either you beat me in trivia or Wild Wild West broke my will down to the point that I just gave up at trivia.
Either way, I think it broke your will down to the point. I would say either you lost trivia or Wild Wild West just broke your will to the point that you would, of your own volition, watch a movie like 9 Lives.
9 Lives.
Kevin Spacey.
That's right. So here's what happens. You make Men in Black, big hit. Fast track to big time. Then you make Wild Wild West. And 17 years later, you're making a movie about a talking cat. That movie is 9 Lives, starring just the darling of Hollywood right now, beloved actor Kevin Spacey. So he's a workaholic dad. He doesn't care about his family. Jennifer Garner, his wife, just completely neglected. His daughter, neglected. Ex-wife, neglected. Everything neglected. His son, even really anything but his giant phallus building is neglected. That, he wants it to be the tallest building. It's his legacy. But he ends up falling off of it and dying.
Oh my God.
He dies. He dies.
Literally dies.
And his soul goes into the body of a cat. Owned by Christopher Walken.
What nice. Christopher Walken is in this.
He is. Here's the thing. And I realized Barry Sonnenfeld did Pushing Daisies too. He did a lot of directing in that show. So if you give him wacky enough material, I'm thinking of Maria Patilla, who we're going to talk about later.
Okay.
If you give him good material, he can get weird with it at least. And you can see here on the fringes, he wants to get weird with this. But instead, he just makes...
Wild West.
That's right. Wild Wild West is crazy.
The wackiest of things.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wiki wacky. But not this movie. It's just the most white bread... not even that. It's like the meal that you make white bread with. It's
well, he's just phoning it in at this point, right? Like,
oh, definitely.
He doesn't have. I mean, he knows his career is over.
Yes, it's sad. It's sad. Even the soundscape for this movie is just dead. Like there are moments where I'm just thinking, like, shouldn't there be some city sound effects? Maybe some birds whistling, some
didn't
cars
care
honking.
enough to ADR that. No,
it's just silent.
Right.
Yeah, so anyway, he becomes a cat. It's sometimes if it does something uncat-like, it's CGI. Other times it's a real cat, and it's kind of a cool cat, I guess. That really does nothing that interesting. He gets drunk the first night he's a cat, which I thought was bizarre in a children's movie.
I mean, nowadays anything goes, right?
Yeah, and there are some moments where suicide is definitely explored to an alarming degree again for a children's
suicide?
movie.
Like he's gonna kill himself as a cat?
Well, there's a point where it looks like his son's gonna kill himself.
Oh,
it's
snap.
just this tall building.
And his son is like 7?
No, his son's... I'm sorry, let me set this up. His son is a grown-up that is scared to go skydiving like Kevin Spacey pre-cat likes to do. So he's like, you're not a real man, son. You don't like to skydive. And,
no.
His son can't live up to
Does he actually say that?
Yeah, but paraphrase, but that's close.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, he's just an a-hole.
Yes, a huge a-hole, a huge jerk, and then he dies. Then he becomes a cat for about an hour. Nothing really exciting or of note happens, and then the cat falls off the building and dies, and his soul goes back to his own body.
What? How does that make any sense?
Nothing makes sense in this movie. Like Jennifer Garner, I mean, what a delightful actress, and she's in this, and I feel bad for her. You know,
oh man,
Ben Affleck was a huge douche to her, and then she had to be in this.
I feel bad for the cat. He had like a douchebag live inside of him for a week, and they falls off a building.
That's right, and the douchebag makes him jump off a building.
Whoa. Does Kevin Spacey inside the cat make the cat jump off the building?
Yeah, because he's I don't even want to explain why that happens, but it does. He's acting heroically. Yeah. And his son gains the balls to skydive too at the same time.
Oh, simultaneously.
That's right, simultaneous.
He doesn't skydive off the building to try and save the cat, does he?
No, the cat so they set it up like the son is gonna kill himself, but instead of that, he's skydiving, and the cat jumps after him. I lost Kevin Spacey and the cat, and the cat dies, which they don't explore how there are thousands of people below watching, and he should have splattered all over them. He doesn't. Kevin Spacey and his daughter, the actress, did a pretty good job. I mean, she doesn't have much to work with. She's mostly just petting a cat and talking to it, but. Right. They go to the...
Did a good job there.
Yeah, pretty good job. So they go to the walk and pet store, and Kevin Spacey walks in and asks for a dog. Again, what a douche, because his daughter just wants a cat, and he's been a cat, so he knows they're not that bad. And instead of a dog, the Mr. Fuzzy Pants, which is what Australia renamed the movie when he went over there.
Better name, for sure.
Yeah, makes you think the movie will actually be at least interesting, Mr. Fuzzy Pants. So I think 9 Lives is really more pertinent. More accurate title. But Mr. Fuzzy Pants walks out. He's there at the pet shop with Christopher Walken. Everything's fine.
How's the cat back after jumping off the building, though?
God only knows. God only knows.
So you said this wasn't a wacky movie, but this sounds pretty wacky to me.
Just imagine this is all done in the straightest, least interesting way possible.
And does Christopher Walken get to flex at all in this movie? Does he get wacky or weird?
It's the most boring Christopher Walken performance I've ever seen.
That's the saddest part.
Even his voice, you expect kind of that New York accent behind it. I don't even know if he's from New York. I should have researched
he just got that Walken
background
accent
better before talking about 9 Lives. But even his voice is really not. It's just a very middle America voice.
Hey, you got 9 lives. Hey.
Yeah, where was that?
That was more Bob Dylan, sorry.
Yeah.
You're talking to me. You got the wrong tone. You talk to me that way again, I'll stab you with a solder knife.
He should have said that. Mr. Fuzzy Pants is kind of an annoying cat. So at least once he should have threatened him with a knife. I mean, if they're going to go that deep into suicide in a kid's movie,
they're
why
get
not
that dark,
cat stabbing?
Why not? Right.
The cat gets drunk like 10 minutes in, so...
Weird times.
Yeah, I never talk about this movie again? I did it to myself. I
did want to ask, in comparison with Wild Wild West, how do you think about 9 Lives stacked up against the inimitable Wild Wild West?
It's funny that you asked that, because I actually did that while watching, and I can honestly say 9 Lives is far less hornier than Wild Wild West and far less racist. Yeah. So it's got that going for it.
But just pure entertainment, enjoyment wise, how do you feel?
I guess I'll give it to Wild Wild West.
You'd rather rewatch Wild Wild West than
watch this again? Yeah, I'll listen to Kenneth Branagh talking like this way quicker than I'd watch 9 Lives again. And 9 Lives is shorter.
That's true. Yeah,
and it's got cute cats, which I like cats.
Yeah.
The movie opens with a cat montage and Kevin Spacey talking negatively about cats. You'd think that would be a good start, but it's not.
No. Yeah, length is a important thing to consider. That's not one aspect that I considered when picking Godzilla from 1998. I did not recall that it was 2 hours and 18 minutes long. But
thanks a lot.
So be it. I picked it, so we had to watch it. And here we are to talk about it.
You know what else is long? The 9-minute credit sequence that starts off with... Hear my cries, hear my call, give me your ears, see my fall, see my error, know my faults, time halts, see my loss, know I'm like... Yes, it's Led Zeppelin. No, it's P. Diddy.
Yeah, that was a long credit sequence. The sepia tone credits with the lots and lots of iguanas
Oh no,
all
this
over
is
the
this is
island.
the end credit sequence, my friend.
Oh, you're talking
The
about the end
the
credits.
opening credits have a score by David Arnold, who I loved in the 90s. He did Stargate and Independence Day, which are previous Roland Emmerich films. That's a
Mhm.
director of Godzilla,
Right,
1998's Godzilla.
right.
So I was a bit bummed because his soundtrack to this movie isn't my favorite. He scores the opening.
I mean, I don't recall the score specifically. Just
It's kind of
remember
like
thinking,
bam, bam, bam,
yeah,
bam.
it went on for a while, and I just remember there's lots and lots of iguanas all over the place, just crawling around. Uh, if we, I guess, just hitting us over the head like giant lizards coming. Here's
These
some
guys.
iguanas everywhere.
And why an iguana? You know,
I don't,
they changed the history of Godzilla here to make him a mutated iguana who, and
right,
again, this is the best part because we talked earlier before we started recording about how this movie is very America. I love that even the bad guys are French. It's
right.
French nuclear testing that created
Yes.
this guy, not America.
Which is hilarious when you look at the trivia. The actual footage there is used from U.S. testing, so it's not even true that that was like old French footage that they found. It was
For
just like,
some reason, France doesn't want to send us footage in a movie we have about how they create a giant lizard that destroys New York.
or maybe they don't have that footage, but just the fact that the U.S. is just slapping on the toit on top of this.
We're not culpable. Like those French fry
Exactly.
eating
Right.
pansies.
Get the countdown in French right away, letting us know that this film is going to be super. I don't know if you'd say anti-French, but there's so much American nationalism in this against the French or just poking fun at the French.
Well, that's a thing with Roland Emmerich. Stargate, starring U.S. military. Independence Day, starring U.S. military.
Mhm.
Godzilla, they're there. They suck. They're awful. But they're there, and in fact, the U.S. military cooperated in the filming of Godzilla.
In the actual making.
Yeah, like an actual pilot from the U.S. military flew the plane in the final sequence where, spoiler, Godzilla just gets killed. They just shoot him with some missiles and he dies.
Yeah, let's just get into the nitty gritty, starting at the top. So we talked about the sepia tone credit sequence with the plethora of iguanas. Then we get a cutscene to Godzilla attacking a Japanese boat, and one again, along with I don't know if you call it racism, but you get the Japanese on the boat. Is there language subtitled at all in the version that you watched? It wasn't in mine. It was just Japanese language, and they're just talking back and forth, but there's no actual words or dialogue given to these people. And I just thought, man, this is super 90s of this movie to do that, or it's like it's not really important for these foreign language speakers to be understood. And even later when we get French characters, they speak in French and we do get their subtitles, but when they need to say something really important, all of a sudden they're speaking in English.
Speak
like,
American. This
speak American.
America.
Exactly.
But Godzilla shouldn't be made in America. I think the last 22 years of American cinema have showed us Godzilla, we can't do it. We just can't.
Just bring it on back to Japan.
Yeah. But hey, here's something interesting. Not back to Japan. So these tests were run in the Pacific Ocean. So you think Godzilla will come ashore in San Francisco or Hawaii, somewhere along that route. Even the 2014 US Godzilla movie had that happen. No, somehow he ends up in New York. Why not?
Well, first we got to cut to Mr. Broderick, Matthew Broderick, who's the star of this film. He is singing in the rain with the worms, and he's been reassigned to go check out what's happened with the Japanese boat that was attacked. Then you got Jean Reno, that really French guy. This is basically how this movie feels about him. He'll talk in English when it's really important. Like I said, they interview one of the lone survivors of the Japanese boat being attacked, who at least I gotta give them a little credit here that they have the Japanese guy say Gojira, the original title of Godzilla. From
That makes you think the movie might be good for a
right,
few
they're
few
paying
minutes.
homage a little bit to the original Japanese. and that they at least include some Japanese characters of just kind of to throw them in there at the beginning, but they really don't have anything to do with the movie. But yeah, I like that from this one scene where he holds up the lighter to the old man and he's just like, what did, he says in English, what did you see, old man? And the old man says, Gojira, Gojira. And we see that clip, like the actual film footage of like the film we were watching. Later, we see that used as footage for like off of like different VHS tapes or different like secret military tapes and stuff like that. I'm like, wait, how did they get that footage? That was the actual film's footage. So why are they using that on like their little 90s TV?
This is a documentary shot by news crews. The entire film.
Exactly. This is all realistic.
Roland Emmerich ahead of the game. Didn't even ever tell anyone this. We just figured it out.
Right. It's an alternate universe where New York is bombed.
Yeah, and they're on the West Coast. New York is on the West Coast in this movie.
Right. Yeah,
for some reason.
That's how Godzilla ended up over there.
Yeah.
Even though the subtitles say Eastern, off of the Eastern Seaboard.
Exactly. And New York is simply given the title, The City That Never Sleeps, which again, I thought was kind of cool. If the movie was better, maybe that would have been like kind of a badass introduction for the city. And I love New York too. One of my favorite places I've ever been. But the New York in this movie sucks.
It's so over the top New York too. You got all these like just ridiculous New York accents especially from the side characters played by Hank Azaria and the lady who plays his wife. I don't know. She's the worst one. I don't remember her name.
They got some accents.
That New York accent. It's like, oh my gosh, shut up.
New York. We'll go over the river.
Right. Speaking of side characters, though, this movie it's probably got like, it's got to have like a record of the most freaking characters in a big blockbuster movie, because it's insane. It just keeps introducing one character after another, and I'm just like, all right, this is 30 minutes in, we're still meeting new people who are, it's not even like, oh, like they've introduced an ensemble and I can't keep up with like the ensemble. It's not an ensemble. It's just like we're jumping from one place to the next and meeting new people over and over again throughout this whole movie that you don't feel like you actually get to know any of these characters.
Not at all.
You've got Audrey in New York, who is Matthew Broderick's old flame from college. She's working in a news studio, and she's being sexually harassed by her boss. You've got some
Harry Shearer from The Simpsons. Hank Azaria and Harry Shearer, both in this movie.
Both from The Simpsons, yeah. Hank Azaria played Moe in The Simpsons.
And many other characters.
Right.
Some now defunct.
But you get a lot of short jokes with Harry there. And it's just, I don't know, it's just like, why is that in this movie? There's so many things in this movie. I'm like, why is this in this movie?
I almost feel like they realized later on, oh no, we made our female main, played by Maria Patillo. Right. I feel bad for the actress. I don't think Maria Patillo herself was horrible, giving good material that she ruined. She's given pretty lousy material.
Yeah. I didn't feel like she distracted me from the movie. Like, there was a few times where her emoting or like, faces she's making like at the TV as she's watching Broderick on the news are kind of awkward or weird. Like, what is she doing with her face? But for the most part, I didn't think she was that terrible, but she did win a Razzie Award for Worst Supporting Actress.
She sure did, which, again, I feel bad because this...
Yeah, I don't know if she deserved it, and this is kind of like her first big movie. So.
Yeah, this movie killed her career, too, because she did a lot of movies before this that weren't major, and she didn't have major roles, but this pretty much ended it. And, I mean, when you're given a role where... You dream of being a TV reporter, and the audience really isn't invested in that dream, because this is a movie about Godzilla trashing New York, so I don't really care a lot about that.
Right.
And then we're given the info that she was Matthew Broderick's old flame, and he asked her to marry him, and her response was to leave without telling him and never talk to him again. And then later on, she steals his video footage of Gojira that we talked about earlier, and she screws him over and he loses his job.
Right. She doesn't have much working for her there.
Yeah. And then at the end of the movie, she gets to do some reporting, which has been stolen from her the whole time,
Yeah.
But it's like the speech in Independence Day, and I'm skipping so far ahead in this movie, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But Bill
Yeah.
Pullman has that great president fighter pilot speech to
Right.
everyone, today we declare our Independence Day, that gets you so pumped. And they tried
Right.
to recreate that, even to the point that David Arnold kind of rips his score from Independence Day, which I love, which I just checked on Amazon. I have it, but it's going for like $300 now. So I'm glad I bought that when I was 14. Good move. But he even tries to play that inspirational music when she's playing the reporter saying Godzilla is a great threat and he has all these babies that want to kill us and we have to stop him. And it's not inspirational, and you're like, by that point you're tired of the movie anyway.
Yeah, she does have that semi-heroic move where she's like, you've got to destroy Madison Square Garden even if we're here. What's important is we, eliminate this threat and everything. So yeah, they definitely move for like a heroic turn there for her character. But again, it could all just be for the screen, for like the TV screen, so.
Yeah, in this documentary of Godzilla's attack on New York.
And you feel, and you feel like, the whole idea there is like she's going to make it up to Broderick to get him on the news, proving that there's this nest. We're skipping so far maybe, but yeah, even that, it's like she does get to also report at the same time and kind of like, bolster her public image, get the job done and do what she's wanted to do. So it's not quite a selfless act. Anyway,
just to give a little context, and then we can back up, but Godzilla in this movie is a pregnant, asexual hermaphrodite who lays a bunch of eggs, and they're reporting on that because there's velociraptors inside.
We'll get to that too. Oh my Lord. Just you saying that out loud. All right. So what is this thing? Broderick says a lot of sciencey things. He's figured out Godzilla is born out of radiation, basically. Got a paleontologist who thinks he's cute.
Played by Vicki Lewis from News Radio, who I wish would have just been the female lead in this, because I like Vicki Lewis.
Great in what they gave her. Yeah, what she had to work with. But
everyone wants to have sex with Maddie Broderick in this movie.
Basically, yeah, she turns around and gives him the eyes.
And everyone's jealous. Like, I've been putting the moves on Vicky for years, but she just likes you after 5 minutes. I hate you, Matthew Broderick. So we automatically don't like him that much because of that. Or I didn't.
I don't know.
No, Matthew Broderick's fine. Whatever.
He's not like offensive at all. He's just kind of there being Matthew Broderick and saying they give him a lot of like sciencey things to say, which just sounds like he's kind of like that annoying kid who's like, actually, let me tell you, it's the radiation. I was like, shut up, Matthew Broderick. That's kind of how I felt.
Slap those glasses off your face after I adjust mine to make sure I can see clearly.
Guy who's like, I bet you're gonna tell me, aren't you?
And he does.
Yeah, and he does.
Because this movie's 2 hours and 20 minutes long, so he does a lot of talking.
How did you feel about the fat, corrupt mayor character who was Mayor Ebert and his lackey named Gene?
Oh, man. So Godzilla comes on shore. By the way, it's perpetually raining in this New York, like way more than Seattle or any other city. Even a rainforest, it never stops raining the whole time, which adds to the gray visual palette of the film.
Yeah.
But Godzilla comes, right? You think this is going to be like the big destruction scene, like Independence Day, and it's just kind of blah. It's from like an ankle level of Godzilla. It's just kind of the same footsteps smashing the ground, tail slapping building slightly. He interrupts Mayor Ebert's press conference.
Well, apparently Roland Emmerich was not too pleased with Siskel and Ebert when they gave Independence Day and some of his other films bad reviews. So this was like a come at you or get, a payback to them that, we're going to put, this fat, corrupt mayor character and his lackey Gene in this film. And
he's a jerk too.
They even have the slogan, thumbs up to reelect Mayor Ebert or something like that. And yeah, he's a jerk. Ebert's a jerk to Gene the whole movie. And, then at the end, basically, Gene gets tired of Ebert and gives him the thumbs down on his campaign. But, I read about, the real Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel talked about how, if you're going to like come at me in this movie. Why didn't you make Godzilla like eat me or stomp on me? But they survived the whole film. So
to no end. They
what's
never
the
really
point of
do
having
anything
them
that
here?
clever.
Yeah, it's just one more side character to keep track of. Dear Lord.
Yeah, and the terrible irony is the movies that Siskel and Ebert kind of panned, Stargate and Independence Day, audience love those movies. I like them. I watched Stargate. Shoot, one weekend we rented Stargate, The Little Giants, Major Payne, and my little brother had gotten The Lion King on VHS. And, you know, at first I wanted to be too cool to watch it since I was a teenager, but I watched it and it was awesome. So we watched those 4 movies 3 times each on Easter weekend in 1995. And I love Stargate. And then Independence Day came out, and I love that too. I saw it 3 times in the theaters, and I still think it's a fun movie now. I mean, it's not like a great film, but it's a fun movie. Right. So they make Godzilla lambast the critics, but ironically, Godzilla sucks, and audiences hate it.
Right. Yeah, this is really a payback for Emmerich, because it's like you put all this stuff in this movie to kind of get back at people, but one, that's really petty, but yeah, 2, your movie sucks and you admit it. So
so lousy. But we get Godzilla coming ashore, only for him to immediately go into hiding.
Right.
Which is what you want in your Godzilla movie. I want Godzilla to hide and rarely be seen throughout the rest of the film.
And we spend the other 2 hours meeting new characters, talking about our backstories. There's some, romantic conflict between Audrey and, well, I should say Audrey and Nick, but I'm just going to say Broderick and Patillo.
That's right. We don't want to get that Nick.
We don't want to get that near this movie. We're going to use the actors' names as we always do.
I'm not a nerd like him. Don't mix us up. Just because we both wear glasses and do experiments on earthworms. Mine not mandated by any government. I'll edit that out.
Well, there was one fun moment with Godzilla coming ashore and trashing Manhattan a little. Kind of fun. I thought it was a little thrilling, where Victor, or quote unquote animal, is played by Hank Azaria. He's almost crushed, where he's trying to film Godzilla the whole movie. He's trying to get Godzilla on footage. He might have done a better job than Roland Emmerich, because the trivia I read was Godzilla appears for like 11 minutes out of this 2-hour and 18-minute movie. So
and all the American Godzilla movies have been like that. He's barely in the movies. Idiots.
I think it's like save the suspense for last, like when we finally reveal him, or we don't want to show him too much. But I mean, early on in this movie, like I think in this scene when he's coming at the mayor and everything, you see pretty much all of him, and then he just disappears for like another hour.
Yeah, and this isn't Jaws. Like you're not building that kind of suspense. This is at its heart a disaster movie.
Yeah.
With not enough disaster. Though you're right, I agree. Were you going to talk about the shot where the foot comes down on Hank Azaria and almost crushes him?
Right. Yeah.
That's a fun shot.
That's a fun shot. Because you really feel like, oh, I'm I haven't seen this movie in like 20 years or whatever. So I'm thinking, oh man, is he going to get killed here? Because he's just like a stupid guy who runs out to try and film him. Oh wait. Okay. Yeah. That's right. He does some stupid stuff later. That's right.
He's always doing stupid stuff. That's why he's animal.
That's why he's a crazy 90s guy. But yeah, he almost gets crushed. That's kind of fun. You want to talk about the Godzilla effects, the special effects here?
Well, I will say the image right when he's coming on shore and the fisherman's running away from him logically makes no sense, because the guy casts his line out 2 feet and Godzilla is 1,000 yards away and he somehow hooks Godzilla. But
I noticed the same thing.
Him coming ashore looks cool though, for about 5 seconds. That was kind of an iconic trailer shot. Because the trailers for this movie were awesome. They made this movie look like it was going to rule, and it does.
Did you read about the teaser trailer that they made for $600,000, and that scene was cut out of the movie? So apparently they made a teaser where they're in a museum. There's a group of students, taking a tour, and they're being shown the T-Rex skeleton. So as they're talking about the T-Rex skeleton, all of a sudden the museum starts to shake. There's lots of booms in the distance, and all of a sudden Godzilla's foot smashes through the glass ceiling and crushes the T-Rex. So obviously a dig at Jurassic Park.
We're going to be bigger.
We're going to be bigger. And I think the tagline was size does matter.
That's right. So I saw that trailer before Men in Black in the theater. And I remember the theater went nuts. Like, ooh, this is going to rule.
Right.
But I guess word of mouth must have been really bad early on, because I remember the weekend this opened up, it only made 44 mil and it was projected to make 100. I used to cut out clippings of movie box office earnings.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was a sad one.
It didn't do as well as they thought it would.
Yeah, and really this movie, unfortunately, is emblematic for me of a certain time in my life. I went to see it. It was the last weekend before 10th grade ended in 1998. I talked about how much I loved 1999 in the last episode. 1998, everything was just really disappointing for me. You know, like I said, I didn't have a car. My friendships weren't working out how I thought they would. The one girl that I was kind of interested in that I grew up around, I blew my shot with her, which is, you know, small beans now, but at the time it felt pretty catastrophic.
Top it all off, Godzilla.
Yeah, and I was like, well, at least I got Godzilla coming for me. And also I had a cyst break out of it, you know, my lower back too, which that's a story for another time. But everything was a bummer. And then I thought, well, Godzilla will make it better, and it didn't.
Were you really riding on Godzilla just to lift your spirits and reclaim your joy for life?
The sad thing is, so, you know, I've had a lifelong battle with depression, which I'm going to make fun of right now. And 1998 was really the year that I can like trace back, like, oh, I stayed in my room for 3 months and didn't talk to anyone. But Godzilla was like just a part of the fabric of that, where I didn't even notice when I was watching it, this sucks. It was just like, blah, I feel nothing.
Right.
The only thing that I remember enjoying were my junior mints. And I had to reflect later about the movie. Like, I guess I wasn't that good.
Watching it now, I can definitely see how it wouldn't elicit much emotion. You know, watching Wild Wild West, there's just something so wacky and weird and strange about that movie, despite it being terrible and so horny, like we talked about. That it is like a fascinating relic to watch from the 90s, where I was entertained by its badness. With Godzilla, like we said, so much of the movie is lackluster. It's missing any action or disaster or what you're showing up to see. And it's just kind of blah. And it's just like, how is this 30 minutes, an hour into this movie? I'm like, how is there still an hour and a half of this movie? What is happening? Why is it damn long? I want it to be over now.
When will it end? And yet it's got this very 90s feel where it's kind of like a commercial. I think Taco Bell is everywhere, which I love Taco Bell in the 90s and now, but it just kind of feels like a commercial on in the background, but it's supposed to be a big movie.
I remember more, like I have more memories of the merchandising and the promotion of this movie than I actually remember of the movie. Like I can remember that Godzilla logo with the green flare around it, and like on, you know, Taco Bell cups or McDonald's cups or whatever they were. And like, you know, I definitely remember the soundtrack and like the cover of the soundtrack and everything. So, and the music video for that Jimmy Page song, like Dear Lord, came on every second on MTV. But yeah, I remember all that stuff way more than I remember this movie. But rewatching it, I can see why, because it's just kind of, it's not the terrible thing about watching it and then trying to come here to make fun of it. It's just like, it's not so wacky and weird that it's fun and it's goofy, or like we can make fun of it. It's just kind of blah, you know, like the whole movie is just kind of there.
It's like 9 Lives, really. These movies paired really well together, or really awful.
Probably sits a little closer to 9 Lives than it would Wild Wild West or anything.
For sure. And this is a director who's shown talent at just being outrageous and entertaining, and then this movie is just kind of the opposite of that, which he has the easiest material to use here, you know, but really he admitted later he had no interest in Godzilla. He hadn't even watched the old movies.
Oh, Lord.
And he apologized for the movie. He thought he dropped the ball. Dean Devlin, the producer and writer as well, said the same thing. They just didn't. I think they needed more time to work on the movie. They weren't passionate about it. They didn't do
Well,
test screenings, which always I say, I mean, you should have been able to tell this wasn't good on your
right.
own without a
On
test
your own. You
audience.
don't need a test screening for that.
Yeah, but
But then I love how the producer, like reading the trivia, I love how the producer, like you said, they're not passionate about it, but apparently the producer would get on message boards online and argue with fans and like vehemently defend this movie like it's some golden relic that people don't understand. Like, what are you doing with your life if that's what you need to do? But,
ouch. And Dean Devlin has said, I believe it was him and not Emmerich, later on, that the two major flaws of the movie, and these would really be things I say are the two major flaws. The first being that they decided not to make Godzilla a hero or a villain, just an animal.
mm,
So there are a lot of scenes of Matthew Broderick looking at Godzilla in wonder. David
mm,
Arnold's giving him really wondrous music, like, wow, what a majestic creature. But
right.
then he's just murdered at the end of the movie, like that, and he never gets to do anything that cool. Which in a lot of movies, even the two movies from the 2010s, which I like the 2014 one a little more. If you cut an hour out of that movie, there's a pretty good movie. But at least those, Godzilla's just like this giant elder god who's here to protect the earth from other monsters. And then in other movies, he's just this villain who's destroying everything and needs to be stopped. But here he's just kind of this poor creature that's just existing. And he and Matthew Broderick make sad eyes at each other at the end whenever Godzilla dies. And you're just like, this is so unsatisfying. I feel bad for Godzilla, but
Right.
it's just lousy. It makes you feel bad. And at
Yeah.
no point did you feel good. So that's a failure I'm glad they recognized. The other is that they didn't really do any good character work early on, so you don't care about the characters. And then they
Mhm.
tried to get it in the middle of the movie, but by that point, giggity, by the way, Wild Wild West sex reference. But they, by that point, you don't care.
Right. Yeah, they should have cut out so many of the extraneous characters and focused on the main characters early on. And like you said, give Godzilla a stance because all those sad eyes between him and Broderick feel really out of place with, oh, but we need to bomb Madison Square Garden to like blow up all his children. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like there's it wants to have like that empathy for the creature, but at the same time it just wants to blow everything up because it's a Roland Emmerich movie.
Yeah, and the
Um,
thing about it too is okay, so it's 2 hours and 20 minutes. Once you're about an hour and 10 minutes in, Godzilla really fades out of the movie, and we focus on his children who have been laid in. Oh, sorry, I'm getting too sexy with Wild Wild West again. Their eggs have been laid in Madison Square Garden, and then
yes.
you really can see like this is what Roland Emmerich wanted to do for whatever reason. He's not really interested in Godzilla. He wants to go to MSG with all these little raptor looking Godzilla babies. And they're really like low rent raptors from
Oh
Jurassic
yes.
Park. And
Oh man, there are so many moments, or there's quite a few moments where I felt like, okay, this is a total ripoff of Jurassic Park, like shot for shot.
no shame.
No shame at all, and which makes it even more egregious thinking about the teaser where we're gonna crush the T-Rex and kind of put down on Jurassic Park and talk about how big Godzilla is compared. But there's the shot where they're in the cab at the end being chased by Godzilla, and you get that same shot that you get in Jurassic Park where they're looking out the back of the Jeep as the T-Rex is chasing after them, and you even have the same little nudge where I believe it's that same scene where the T-Rex kind of nudges against the Jeep and
Yes.
bumps it a little bit. Godzilla does the same thing, and it's got to be like the same animation framework or something. Like they must have just ripped that straight from Jurassic Park and put a Godzilla skin on it.
It's really bizarre, man. Go
All
ahead.
the baby Godzillas, like total raptor situation, and the same situation from Jurassic Park where you have them, in this large complex hiding, trying to escape. And you've got the same thing here where they're in the Madison Square Garden and they've got to lock them in, these different doors and find different practical ways. I mean, they even climb up into a ductwork, which is but everything here is like low rent Jurassic Park. Like none of the deaths are that cool. None of the like solutions they come up with are that interesting. It's all just kind of blah, which just goes along with the rest of this movie.
Very blah. Yeah, really, I love Jean Reno. I love them in Big Blue and The Professional. And he gets to be kind of cool. You can see how he was supposed to be because a lot of the movies from the 90s with this Emmerich Devlin duo, they have the cool Kurt Russell military guy and then the nerdy James Spader. Then you've got the cool Will Smith military guy. And then, I mean, Jeff Goldblum's supposed to be a nerd, but, he's still sexy Jeff Goldblum. Anyway. Right. And then in this movie, you have the nerdy Matthew Broderick and, the cool French military Jean Reno. But, I mean, the movie sucks, and neither one of them really get to be characters. Jean Reno has the most character because he just wants good coffee, and he hates the damn American coffee. He thinks it sucks. Even the French roast sucks.
Oh, yeah. Probably 90% of what Jean Reno is doing here is being insulted by the script to make fun of Frenchdom, because half of everything he says is about, I don't know, lame dig, like sideways dig at being French, or like this kind of playful back and forth between the Americans and the French is like, oh, they didn't have a croissant. Or
he says that. He literally says no croissant
when they give him a donut. And then he's like, oh, what is this? They call this coffee. And it's just like, I don't know, just all these lame late 90s, like, oh, there's a different culture out there if you weren't aware,
Yeah,
coming from like 2020 and, the peak of globalization and everything. It just feels like, looking back on this just feels so strange. Where it's just like we are some island to ourselves, but we had discovered the French for the first time. And
look at this guy.
We put all these references in a movie. That's basically what his character is, the whole movie.
When they first pull up to MSG and they have to get past military security, Jean Reno has to pretend like he's an American. So he just impersonates Elvis, says, thank you very much. And
right.
but which is actually kind of funny until he has to spell it out for the audience. Elvis Presley was the king when they drive away. Like I was doing an Elvis impersonation, just in case you didn't know.
He turns to Broderick and says, Elvis Presley movies.
It's as bad as some jackass saying, see what I did there after they tell a joke, which just makes me want to punch someone in their face, then their nuts, or their nuts, then their face. But both places.
Yeah, so then they blow up the Madison Square Garden. At this point, before this, we had a really lackluster submarine battle with Godzilla.
So boring. Jeez.
Again, we go from helicopters attacking him. No, then he goes into the water. Oh no, we've got submarines. At this point, I'm like, dear Lord, like okay, now the Navy's gonna take care of him. And we meet more characters. I'm like,
and it eats so much time.
I know. It's like, when will this end? When will they just stop going, meeting new people, doing different things that are just not interesting?
And then when his babies, like we talked about this in Cut Third Island, the ship blowing up at the end is so awesome. They use like 8 billion gallons of gasoline to blow it up and show it from like a million angles. And it's my favorite part of that whole movie, which I get some other enjoyment out of it too. Go check out that episode. It's great. But MSG blowing up is also an amazing explosion with practical effects. It's the best part of the whole movie for me.
It probably is, yeah. It's a pretty great explosion.
And then Godzilla rises up from the wreckage and it's like, you killed my babies! And then we get the big chase scene in the movie.
Well, yeah, because at that point it does get a little more interesting because Godzilla now has a motive to be vicious and mad and angry at the four characters that happen to be standing there that he blames for the death of his hundreds of children. But yeah, at least at that point it's like, okay, we have a motive here and we have like a pursuit. It's not just, oh, there's this animal roaming around in the city. So he becomes more active there, in which it gets a little bit more interesting.
Finally,
but
he's a fish eater. That's established earlier. He just wants to eat fish. He doesn't want to eat people, and his kids only eat people because the people smell like fish, which was really stupid. But go ahead.
Well, apparently that was one of the stipulations that Toho, the company that owns Godzilla property, gave the Americans. Said Godzilla cannot eat any people. He can only eat fish.
That's right.
But they broke every other rule that they gave them, apparently.
Which is why Japan to this day calls this monster Zilla. Toho has trademarked him as Zilla. They refuse to call him Godzilla. Yeah. Poor 1998 Godzilla.
Poor Godzilla lost all your babies. Now you're gonna, yeah, but the cab chase is kind of fun for a little bit, but then again, it just keeps going. They go in a tunnel, then they go in his mouth, then they go out of his mouth, then they go across a bridge, then it's the Brooklyn Bridge, and then Godzilla is not defeated by a coagulant like he was in the other Godzilla movie we watched. No, he's ultimately defeated by suspension cables.
He gets tied up, big dummy.
Even though he's able to tear through entire steel buildings from before earlier in the movie, somehow he can't escape these cables.
Not these cables. And then they just shoot him with some missiles and he's dead.
Right.
Which he's indestructible in every other movie, but in this one, conventional weapons kill him. Yeah, they don't even blow him up with something else. It's just conventional missiles. And he's all bloody.
The whole movie, they're shooting at him. They're like, oh, they're not hurting him. Or, they shot him with a torpedo and he didn't die. But, we can shoot him with some missiles and I guess we'll finally get a clear shot.
Yeah, it's like the movie needs to be over now. We didn't write any kind of cool way to kill him. He just needs to die. So these missiles killed him. The end.
We're at the 2-hour, 17-minute mark.
Yeah. Let's wrap this baby up.
You got 1 minute to wrap this up. But yeah, this doesn't end before Broderick has another touching moment staring at the dying beast. And I swear to God, he wants to say, "'Twas beauty that killed right here." Like I was just waiting for him to say that for no reason at all.
Full King Kong.
Yeah. But it wasn't beauty. It was the suspension cable.
That's right. Which I guess architects would find that beautiful, right?
Maybe it was xenophobia. I don't know. Why can't we all get along?
For such a xenophobic movie, right? I think you're right.
Yeah, there's a message here somewhere, right?
We don't want them damn foreigners here. Godzilla's got to go. If he was an American iguana, it'd be okay. But he's a damn French Polynesian iguana. Gotta put him down.
That's awesome. Oh, man.
So we're done. That's it. Everyone's happy. For some reason, the movie doesn't really earn happiness for anyone. But Jean Reno lives, which is a shock. He gets through it. Pretty much all our main characters are alive and fine. And then we get P. Diddy. P. Diddy's here to ruin a great Led Zeppelin song, which I was really worried at the time. Like, people are going to forget about the Led Zeppelin song and just remember the P. Diddy song. And then they're going to forget about this awesome Police song that I like that P. Diddy also redid. But that didn't happen. People generally think of the originals now, way before the P. Diddy remakes where he just raps over the song. Badly, I think. His rapping was lousy.
Great. Yeah, it's pretty lousy.
And his words are dumb. He's like, I hate you. I'm gonna bite you. You suck. And I don't like you.
I think
that's the whole song.
That's literally what he says. At that point, I was just so glad this movie was finally over. I didn't watch all the credits. I didn't listen to all of P. Diddy. I just turned it off. I'm done.
There's another song after that. They're really long credits.
Oh.
Did you get the soundtrack to this back in the day?
I think I did, yeah.
Everyone had it. I mean, even though I was the only kid in Pointy Parish who went to see this movie, everyone else's pickup trucks were fully equipped with the Godzilla soundtrack. I didn't have a car, but everyone else did, and they had this CD.
Because, like you said, with some of the other Godzilla movies, if you cut them down, like the newer ones, cut out like an hour, maybe they'd be a decent film. This, I mean, you cut out an hour, you still got another hour of lousy dialogue.
It's all crap, man.
That aren't developed. I don't know.
I really think that the 2014 movie, if you cut out the whole father-son Bryan Cranston, which I love Bryan Cranston, but in this movie, his storyline means nothing to the rest of the movie. It's pointless. It's like 30 to 40 minutes of the movie. Cut that. Cut out some of the more human stuff that the audience isn't interested in. All the Godzilla stuff, the effects are incredible. The way that he films it, with the classical music in the background, with the Ligeti's Requiem. I mean, it's just freaking awesome. It's so good. But it's surrounded by so much fat that doesn't need to be there.
Do you think for a giant monster movie like this, how would you feel about a version that was just like nonstop action destruction? Or do you feel like you need a little bit of that human element to balance it out?
That's what I wanted Godzilla King of the Monsters that came out last year. I really wanted it to just be monster fights. You know, I took my son to see it. He wanted the same thing. But you get these fight setups, and then anytime it's about to be on, we cut away to really boring humans doing uninteresting things that I am uninterested in, and then
Mhm.
cut back and the fight's either over or you get, like 12 seconds of it and it's
Yeah.
badly shot, and then back to the humans again.
I wonder if that's a reaction in any way because, when the Transformer movies came out, I know a lot of people complain like, oh, it's just like an hour of fighting and metal scraping on metal and
But
destruction.
they have the same problem. Watch the first Transformers movie. Well, that's the only one I watched. I didn't watch any other
Yeah, I
others
didn't watch
till
it.
Bumblebee that recently came out. That was great and not Michael Bay. But the
Yeah.
first one, you have that big fight at the end, but there are more shots of Megan Fox driving the stupid tow truck than there are of actual coherent fights, which nothing's coherently cut in that movie
Right.
except
Or
the
in
sexualized
Michael Bay
shots of
movies,
Megan
yeah.
Fox. That's it.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll get a good monster movie that's just nonstop fighting one of these days.
I really enjoyed the 2005 King Kong, which I know is divisive because of how long it is and certain
It's
other elements.
freaking long. Yeah.
But I liked the human element. I love that movie. The King Kong in that movie, in my opinion, is perfect.
It's been since 2005 that I've seen that movie, but I remember just thinking, "Dear God, will this stop?"
I tried to watch it with my family recently, and they both just tuckered out like
Yeah.
40 minutes in, and both complained to me about it the next day. But I stayed up and watched it, and I still loved it. But Peter Jackson really, he had carte blanche after Lord of the Rings, but he needed to be reined in a little bit. Like
I don't know.
maybe
That's all
30
right.
minutes cut out of it, it would have been better.
Yeah, I agree. I think so. I think it could have been decent if cut down. But
I still
what
think it's
people,
a good movie. I think it could be like an all time great, in my opinion.
what people should go check out though, if they haven't, go watch the original Godzilla and go watch the original King Kong.
Love
And
them.
just I was thinking about King Kong, especially watching this because so much of I read the trivia that when they released this movie, the special effects weren't finished. Something went wrong with the film stock they wanted to use, and so what people saw was just some pretty crappy special effects. I'm reading that in 2009 they re-released this on Blu-ray, and they finally got to see the special effects that were supposed to be used. I don't know if these are original to 98, what I saw on Netflix or not, but they still look really flat and gray and
Mm-hmm.
not that. I mean, they look decent for 98. I don't know. They're not like, I don't know. They're not terrible, but it's 98, so it's not great. But I thought about King Kong just because even though it's stop animation and it's rickety, there's something really charming and really tactile about it, and just even though it's not real, it feels more realistic just because there's a real thing there in front of you on the screen.
Most definitely. Yeah.
And the same thing with the animatronics like in Jurassic Park, or anything that's more practical. But yeah, go check out King Kong and go check out the original Godzilla if you
Yeah.
haven't.
Those are both formative films for me. I've talked about
Right.
the original King Kong watching with my dad, but Godzilla as well, because I loved dinosaurs when I was a kid. And as soon as I heard that Godzilla was a thing, the library in Porky Parish actually had a lot of Godzilla VHS tapes. So
Yeah.
I watched a ton of those, and they're goofy, whatever,
Yeah.
but I love them. They're way more entertaining than this crap.
Right. And I think a lot of people probably have, like, a lot of Americans have a poor opinion of Godzilla, and like, oh, it's just, goofy, like 70s, 80s, like really like guys in rubber suits and stuff like that. I haven't watched a whole lot of those. I'm not itching to go see a whole lot of those. But the very first original Godzilla, the Japanese version, is amazing. I watched it recently for the first time, and just again, I mean, just the messages about nuclear power in that movie, and then all the practical effects, all the like cool lighting, and then the character work too. Like everything in that movie is working. Antithesis of this 1998 version. So
Yeah, it's about something. It's got heart. And
right,
honestly, for me, any kaiju movie, I want to feel this sense of apocalypse. Like, could be the end of everything. You don't get that at all with this stupid 1998 movie.
no, you don't.
I feel like in the 2014 Godzilla, they did get that across at points, especially with Godzilla kind of being like this elder god character. I mean, they did a cool job of that. but not in this movie, not at all.
They try to go for it in that broadcast scene where she's broadcasting out to everybody, letting them know that this might be our extinction if these animals get out there. But yeah, it feels so phoned in by that point. It's just like, whatever.
Yeah,
I don't buy it. You're gonna destroy MSG, and that's it. That's the only thing that's lost from this encounter. New York will survive.
Yeah, and they're trying to show you inspired New Yorkers, and it's like, nah, they've mishandled just the aspect or the idea of being a New Yorker so much at this point. Which again, I love New York, and I've loved everyone that I've encountered there for the most part, except for that one guy at 1:30 in the morning. I wish I could get my money back that I gave you out of sympathy, because I know that you spent it on drugs. But in this movie, there's no one that's likable to get you into the New York spirit.
Yeah. I mean, the most likable person would be Matthew Broderick, but he doesn't come across as New Yorker at all.
Even though we're introduced to him singing a show tune, it still doesn't really come across. And he's a native New Yorker. You think he'd be from Chicago with Ferris Bueller, but he's not. Yeah. He's from New York. If he's not, I'll cut this part out later.
I think my favorite scene of the whole movie, and let me know yours. I think my favorite scene, again, very Jurassic Park like, where they're in MSG and they're trying to get away from the baby Godzilla raptors. There's the moment where he's trying to get out to alert the military and he can't get out, and then he tries to get into the elevator. And so that's very suspenseful, where he's waiting and waiting and waiting for the doors to open. And then they finally open, then he's got to go inside and push the button to make it close. And then they're trying to get in. He's got to kick them out. And then, all right, he's finally in the elevator. It's going up, and then it opens, and he's on another floor where it's just, Godzilla's everywhere, eating the popcorn and just tearing into stuff. And it's kind of like a comedic, wacky moment where they all just kind of like turn and look at the elevator, and he's like, wrong floor.
Yeah, that was cool. If the movie had more of that.
If the movie had more stuff like that, more like kind of, I don't know, not that it needed, like, I guess it had some parts where it was like trying to be humorous and it just fell flat, but that was one part that actually worked, and it was suspenseful and funny at the same time, because I really felt like, oh Lord, like, how's he gonna get out of this? So.
I dug it, though it does have that movie sin. Movies still have, but in the 90s too, where military people are just getting picked off left and right, even though they have combat training and guns. And then our like average schmo Matthew Broderick characters who could get blown over by a stiff breeze are still surviving and getting past all the raptors. I'm just going to call them raptors.
Right. Maybe the raptors feel more of a threat from all the gens.
That's right.
All the French guys,
or they're racist.
Right, they're even the raptors are racist in this movie. No, they just jump on them immediately, and the guys are sitting there like, just kind of staring blankly, like, oh my god, and then the raptors jump on them and kill them. And again, the most boring deaths. But yeah, somehow like the civilians just kind of escape and run around and get past all these raptors. What would you say was your favorite moment of this movie, if you had one?
Definitely when MSG gets blown up, especially because the Knicks were my favorite team growing up, because my name is Nick, and I love Patrick Ewing, and I hated Michael Jordan and the Bulls so much. The stupid Knicks could not get past the Bulls ever. They always lost to them in the conference finals. Team, of course, because you're a basic NBA bitch. You don't know about the teams. You just like the Bulls because they're the best, just like my brother did.
No, I like them because my name's Jordan.
No, see, that's just not fair. It's not fair. I didn't think about that, but not fair that you're named after the greatest basketball player of all time, which I'm sure your parents did intentionally with their prophetic sports powers. They knew he would be great.
Yes, they knew it.
Yeah, anyway, so I hated the Bulls, and I was pissed at the Knicks by this point. So when they blew up MSG, I was like, good. Get rid of them. They're never going to win.
Maybe there's a message there.
I think they have had maybe 2 winning seasons since this movie was made. The Knicks suck. Come back. Come on, guys. You have so much money and resources and fans. Like, be good.
What was your star rating for this movie?
I give it a 3 out of 10.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I gave it a 1 out of 5.
Gotcha. So I actually gave it a better score than you.
Yeah, you did. I said 1 out of 5 for doing everything and nothing all at the same time. Because it really tries to do everything, but it does amount to just nothing. Like nothing, none of yeah. It's so crammed with crap that is unnecessary. It's ridiculous. Mediocre crap too. It's not even like engagingly terrible. It's just why is this here?
Yeah, I give it a 3 because it's just blah for me, which 3 is kind of my blah bad score. I don't think it's inherently awful. It's just boring. It's a very boring, nothing movie.
I think it's so boring and nothing that it's awful. Like, one.
You know what I spared you from? So I have the 1998 Guinness Book of Film, which I got, I guess, for Christmas in 1997. So it's got every year of film and the important movies, or, you know, just movies that you should know about from each year. So 1998 is kind of them just trying to predict what's going to be good. And Godzilla is the headliner, and they're talking about how it's the most anticipated film of the year. But then there's like a mini review of the actual movie. And they're like, it's excellent. It's got all the monster smashing action you want. And that got me pumped up for the movie, too, which that book, that kind of sucks. It praises every movie it mentions. So you just think every movie is good, like the 1998 Godzilla, and then it's not.
Yeah, there was so much hype for this movie. Yeah. Out, especially for the special effects. So when it arrived in theaters half finished, I could see why a lot of people were disappointed, and the word of mouth was terrible for it.
Yeah, definitely. In retrospect, I have an appreciation for 1998. I can see some important stuff that happened in my life. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, that came out in 1998. And I watched a lot of really other great movies that year. I was thinking like, wow, another Jean Reno movie from 1998, Ronin. Love that movie. So good. So much good stuff that year, but not Godzilla. Not Godzilla.
Not Godzilla. Well, movie connection time. So to tie this in, like we do every episode, to the previous film we watched. So how will we connect this to Wild Wild West? Could it be that it's a failed reboot of a beloved property? We could go that route. Or we could say they're both nominated for Razzies in their years for Worst Picture, Worst Director, and Worst Screenplay. Godzilla, like we mentioned earlier, winning for worst supporting actress.
I'm not going to ask you my Razzie trivia question now. It sounds like you're too familiar with it.
You're familiar with it? Yeah, and it also won the worst remake or sequel. But yeah, go and check out all the Razzies that Wild Wild West won. It's nothing. Godzilla pales in comparison to all the awards that Wild Wild West won for being terrible. So.
Oh yeah, is that the connection? The Razzies?
That's the connection. That's all I got.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, they're both panned and people hate them.
Right, basically. What else are you gonna say?
It's trivia time. That's what I say.
All right. So, like last time, I'm just gonna wing it. Hopefully, that will benefit me like it did previously, where I won. Just kind of making things up off the top of my head, or actually off of IMDb.
Hey, who's going first here? Oh, you want me to kick it off?
You kick it off since you lost last time. I'll let you kick it off.
Yes, and also because I bothered to write questions, so I'll go first. In addition to Godzilla, director Roland Emmerich teamed with writer-producer Dean Devlin on all of the following films, but A. Stargate, B. Independence Day, C. The Patriot, D. The Day After Tomorrow.
Was it The Patriot?
Wrong. Day After Tomorrow. Yeah. So The Patriot was made in 2000. I believe they split up after that. John Williams scored The Patriot. It's kind of crazy to think that he wrote the music for a Roland Emmerich film, but he did. It's a great score. That's a fun movie. It's got some problems, but it's fun.
So Matthew Broderick starred in this 1985 film where he plays a thief named Gaston, directed by Richard Donner. Rutger Hauer is also in this film. Would it be A, 1918, B, Lady Hawk, C, Project X, or D, Torch Song Trilogy?
Lady Hawk.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's easy.
I'll never forget that movie poster of Rutger Hauer and Matthew Broderick, so it's burned in my mind.
I have it on DVD and watched it not too far back.
How'd it hold up?
It was all right.
Yeah. I
Got
never
some,
was a huge fan of it. I just thought it was all right.
yeah, it's got some trippy moments where I think Howard turns into a wolf or a hawk, or maybe both. Yeah.
We love Rutger Hauer here. All right, here we go. Time for me to take you out. In addition to Godzilla, what other 1998 film did Matthew Broderick star in? A. Inspector Gadget. B. The Cable Guy. C. Election. D. The Lion King 2. Simba's Pride.
Oh, snap. La, 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 la. Was it Election?
Wrong. The Lion King 2. Simba's Pride. Election was 99, the best year in film.
Should have known it was from 99, since that's a good film.
Yeah.
Let me come up with a question.
It's not fair because you could scale up, right? Like, I'm losing. Let me find something impossible.
All right. So, Godzilla 1998, directed by Roland Emmerich. What was Roland Emmerich's first U.S. debut theatrical film from 1985? Was it A, Making Contact, B, Ghost Chase, C, Moon 44, or D, Universal Soldier?
All right, so Universal Soldier is 90s. Moon 44, that was his first team up with Dean Devlin. Making Contact.
You got it.
Yeah, I win!
All right, what am I going to watch?
I just want to say, I did not get to my question that had Mace Me as an option, which I always like to put Mace Me in there, because one day it's going to be right. And also,
What was the question?
Also Rounders 2, The Rise of Donk Cephas. So Donk Cephas made another appearance, but I didn't get to it. I have to save it for later.
Oh, no.
He's still.
How you're just taking these inside jokes from previous episodes and sprinkling them in.
Still knows the future of Donk. If only he would tell us. Okay, so
that was the Nostradamus character that you made.
That's right.
Somehow it's gonna trick me.
He's a bootyologist. He's not really. He's not really child appropriate. So the movie that I have for you to watch is not good. I'm sorry. I'm going to blame my wife for this one. I was trying to think of a movie, and she said, what about those awful asylum movies that you like to watch with your cousin Jared? And I realized they made a Godzilla one recently, and it has a connection to this Godzilla. The captain of the boat, of the Japanese tanker ship, he's in this movie. It's 2019's Monster Island, made by Kings of Crap, The Asylum. It stars Eric Roberts. Have fun.
Thanks. Like Monster Island.
It is available on all streaming services. The Asylum gets their stuff out there. So.
Oh no, I can't find it. What's another movie I can watch?
You definitely can. The most expensive price I've seen to watch it is $1.99.
Oh, it's the 2019.
Yeah, it sure is.
Wow,
that's the one.
Whoa, man, it's got a 2.6 out of 10 on IMDb. That might be one of the lowest scores that I've seen.
I'm choking to death with pleasure.
Wow, this is a TV movie. Awesome.
Yeah, they started like simulcasting. Well, they started showing their movies on Sci-Fi, and then a week later it'd go on VOD, and people would pay money to watch it.
Have you seen this?
I haven't seen this one, but I try to watch when I hang out with my cousin Jared. We'll try to watch whatever they've got, going, and we haven't gotten to this one yet. And
have you seen Six-Headed Shark Attack?
Yeah, sure have. It's awful.
Yeah,
it's really bad. I've seen most of their movies. I hate to say.
Island. Wow. Okay. Well, I think my plan has backfired on me. I need to start writing my trivia questions.
Yes, you do. This is your punishment. I made sure to pick a bad one for that reason. I really liked Velocipaster, right? But I feel like that was a movie that was made intentionally bad with love. And a lot of thought went into every shot being as bad as possible. But these Asylum movies, it's just like, oh, here you go. Let's shoot, I guess. We're done. Turn off the camera, I guess. Cut it together.
Make a few bucks. All right. Yeah. Man.
Yeah, they
So
suck.
what are we watching next? It's your pick for our main episode, for our main film for the next episode. So
I am
what are we
so
getting?
psyched about the next movie. So I heard the guitar theme in my head, darn, 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 like 2 nights ago, and I thought we got to watch Broken Arrow from 1996. I haven't seen it. Like I had it on VHS from Columbia House, and my brother and I watched it a lot. Like we could quote a lot of the movie, and
Uh-huh.
I love the Hans Zimmer soundtrack. In fact,
Yeah.
I ordered it on sale from La La Land, who's having a huge sale. If you're into movie soundtracks, I'm just going to promote them right now. Great website. But yeah, I haven't watched it in like 22 years. So I really want to see if it's still a fun movie. I remember some critics having some hate for it, but I really
Man,
dug it. So I want to see if
yeah.
it's any good.
I loved everything Christian Slater was in the 90s. I
Oh,
couldn't
yeah.
get enough. I'm pumped. I love this movie. Hopefully it holds up because I haven't seen it in quite a few years. But yeah, I think I'll just love it for nostalgia, if nothing else.
It's
And I
got to
mean,
be better than Wild Wild West and Godzilla, right?
it's got
I think we're making a turn back into enjoyability with our
right,
movies.
right. Good pick. Good. I think we need this to keep going. We
Yes,
don't need to watch
apologies
80
to our
more very
audience.
terrible movies. Yes.
We're
Just
trying to throw you a bone here.
right.
We
Just
think this
teasing you
movie is
down.
actually fun to watch. We hope.
Yes. Hopefully so. I think it will be. Do you have any plot synopsis for our fans or listeners who might not be familiar?
Here's the synopsis. There's another Broken Arrow that's an older film. This is not a remake of that. This is a movie where Christian Slater and John Travolta are flying a stealth bomber when all of a sudden John Travolta looks evilly at Christian Slater, ejects him, and drops the bombs unarmed to the ground so that he and a crew he has formed can retrieve them because he's evil and he wants to do some bad stuff with some nuclear weapons.
The only
And
motivation you need in the 90s. You're
that's
just evil.
I just remember him having like this archetypal evil quality, which I want to see if I just imagine that or if that's
No,
real. And
yeah.
also, he has the
Remember
line,
too.
"Ain't it cool?" which there's a website that
Cool.
formed based on that line. You
Was
can
it
make
based on
your
that
own.
line for this movie?
Yeah, that's what they based the website on, which you
Oh,
can make
okay.
up your mind if that website existing was a good or a bad thing, but it came
Yeah.
from this movie.
No, I remember that line. Yeah, I remember it vividly.
Oh,
Cool,
man.
man.
Can't
I'm
wait.
very excited. Yeah, very excited.
Also, I bought the Blu-ray from the dollar store 5 years ago for $4. I haven't watched it yet, so I've been waiting for the opportunity.
Nice.
Well, it's a John Woo movie. It's our
Oh,
first
yeah.
John Woo, so
Yeah.
super pumped.
I didn't realize. I guess I mean, obviously, in what 96 when this came out, I wasn't probably aware of John Woo, but cool. Yeah, I didn't realize he was the director.
He did this before Face Off, where he reteamed with Travolta. So I think this is his second American film after a good old Hard Target, which we've talked about already. Not as the center of an episode, but in
This
reference
might be
to.
my favorite John Woo film, actually.
I've watched
Face
most
Off
of
is
his
so
movies.
ridiculous, but Broken Arrow is just will always have a warm place in my heart. Just Christian Slater, man.
Yeah, I think Hard Boiled or Face Off are my favorites, but I really dug this one, so hopefully I still do.
Right. Well, it's on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play. Oh, it's on Hulu or Prime, Amazon Prime.
Right on. Ain't it cool?
Ain't it cool? Go check it out. Thanks for listening, guys. If you have any feedback for us, you can shoot us an email at filmshakepodcast@gmail.com. Check out Nick's blog at thenicksperiment.com or find us on Twitter, Facebook, whatever social media you want to track us down on. All right, and catch you next time for more Film Shake.
Take it easy.
All right.
So the sound quality